to my studio. Today I want to show you how to make homemade dip pens. We're going to do two sorts. One is the simplest possible, and all you need for this is a bit of bamboo out of the garden. So this is just green bamboo, and you need some matches. So that's it. With the bamboo, you need to cut it to length and cut it just above one of these nodes, because all we do at this point is get a match. Should we try that again? Get a match, obviously light it for safety's sake, and then you insert it in the end. Cut it off with a pair of secateurs to the shape you want, and you have now got a dip pen. I mean, how easy is that? Literally, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to show you later the sorts of marks it makes. So that's dip pen number one. Now I would like to show you how to make a cola pen. I've just come across these. They've been around for absolutely ages, but I've just come across them and I think they're wonderful. I love making my own art materials, and they're very straightforward to do. They are made out of any beverage tin. So what you need is a can, something to cut on, sharp knife, a pair of scissors. Those there so you can see them all, some tape, particularly attractive shade of green there, a marker, and you need something to make the handle from. So again, I'm going to use a bit of bamboo because I've got some really big clumps in the garden, so that's easy for me. You could use a pencil, you could use a chopstick, you could use, well, I don't know, I've seen them used with a knife, cutlery, like bamboo cutlery. You could use an old brush handle, whatever. And I think that's all we need. So let me show you how we do this. First, a big word of warning. When you cut metal, it is razor sharp, so you may wish to have some plasters on hand too, but do go careful. Taking your knife, you need to cut the top off. Or you can use your scissors, that's up to you. So just cut it off the top, you don't need that bit. Do exactly the same with the bottom. And discard that bit. Oh gosh, it's all starting to split. Now open the can with scissors or a knife, whichever's easiest for you, until you have a flat piece of metal. Now you can see it's wet inside. I should have said make sure it is clean first. And this is the metal that we're going to use for making our nib. And one can would make about 8 nibs, I guess. Because you'll end up cutting it into small pieces like this, which are about 3 centimetres, 3.5 centimetres by say 4, and that is going to be your nib. So once you've got your piece like that, you need to mark the nib shape, and basically you need a piece that's going to attach to the handle, and then this bit that will be cut to shape for the nib. What I have learnt is that aluminium actually rips very easily. So if you have a little nick here, it's very easy for the whole thing to rip off. So just watch out for that. I think the sensible thing to do might be to actually make a dot with something sharp like a nail at each corner, and that would actually be around and stop the aluminium ripping. Again, be very careful with these razor sharp little bits of metal. So that is the basic shape of our nib. That will go on to our handle. We'll fix it in place and then cut it to the shape we want. Okay, so it's very straightforward. I have gaffer tape here because I happen to be a huge fan of gaffer tape. You could use masking tape, painter's tape, but you just want something good and sticky. So I'm just going to cut strips because this is too wide, and have a few sort of lined up ready to go. Other thing to think about is these scissors I'm using to cut the metal. Obviously it's not good for scissors, so don't use your best dressmaking scissors or your hairdressing scissors or whatever. Make sure it's a set that you don't mind if they're blunted. So I've got some bits of tape ready. You then need to gently fold your nib section, sort of just with a round fold, and then fix it at about that position to really support the nib. So I'm going to get one of my strips and put it round there. Frankly, you can't put on too much tape. You want it nice and secure, and you want it to be comfortable to hold. So just put that on. You know, these aren't things of beauty, but they will be fun to work with. So now I'm just giving that more of a fold at that end, so it's soft here and a slightly sharper fold at that end, and I have the basic shape. It needs to be trimmed into this sort of shape, which is easy to do. So again, using those scissors, I'm going to do a nice smooth curve around there, and I don't want these sharp corners, so I'm going to, oh dear, see what I said about it not being good for your scissors. I'm going to get a shot of those, make sure I haven't got any shards of unpleasant bits of metal around. Okay, I'm just looking there thinking that might be a little bit pointy, so let's do that. I'll just get those out of the way as well. This is the actual drawing end of it, that isn't, so don't worry about those. Again, get rid of those shards. So we are going to draw with this tip, and the ink will be held between the two flaps, so it's like an old-fashioned ruling pen as such. I've said that's really sharp, So it would be a good idea to gently use a piece of sandpaper to get rid of any burrs or unpleasant edges. Do it carefully, because if you pressed hard you just twist the whole thing. You might want to do the inside as well. Then when you've done it with fairly coarse paper, you might want to use a really smooth glass paper just to get a gentle, nice smooth edge. And that is it, one Kohler pen. And I shall show you how it writes and how it draws in a second. Easy, hey? So I thought, just before we try our homemade dip pens, maybe we should try some commercial dip pens. This is a beautiful glass dip pen that came from China. Has a little stand to rest that on. And this particular one came with a little bottle of ink of fairly dodgy provenance, I feel. But to say, they are glass, and sometimes you find them with this the twisted grooves in the nibs, and sometimes they're straight and the twisted ones seem to hold more ink. You do need to be very careful because it's a very fine point, and of course if you jab it in your ink to load it, you could easily break off the end. But they are very surprising because they go on for ages. So this is one dip of ink, and you think it's glass, so there's no absorbency, and yet look how far it's writing. I'm just using a bit of Indian ink in here, so it's going on and on and on and on from one dip of ink. You can write almost a paragraph with it. They are designed as calligraphy pens. Oh, look, it's all still going. This is cartridge paper I'm working on at the moment, so quite smooth. Oh, this is getting boring. This is going on a lot further than even I thought it would. Let's do a different one. Oh, it's starting to run out now. Just about. So, really interesting pen to work with. Always the danger that it will break because it's glass, and a very fine and very consistent line, and a surprising length of line given one dip. When you've finished with it, you need to just wash the ink off, or wipe the ink off, and I'll wash that in a moment to get that out of the grooves. So that's a commercial dip pen, and you can order those online very easily. Something you might be more familiar with are these sorts of dip pens, and they come with a number of nibs usually, which are interchangeable. Just pull them out of the handle, push them back in, and it's again a calligraphy dip pen. So let's just check the mark on this. What should we do? Oh, we'll do the A, B, C, D, E, F. See, that's running out now. And running out again. So, etc. You can get a thicker mark and a thin mark with the same nib because this is an italic pen. The fun of drawing with these is, of course, that you do get a lighter mark and a heavier mark, as the ink runs out, so that brings some character. Now let's have a look at our homemade dip pens. So that was my very simple bamboo dip pen. You can cut the nib as such, that bit of the matchstick, oops, to shape whatever you want to do, and then just dip it in your ink and do whatever marks you want with it. You can see it runs out pretty quickly. You can do a finer mark if you've cut it into a point. You can do a broader mark depending what shape you've done. So it's quite a characterful mark, but it does run out quickly, and you will get used to dipping. Carries on. Okay, so that was our very simple stick pen. Now let's have a look at the Cola pen. Again, to load it, you just dip the end in. You can get a very broad mark on the side there, and this is what calligraphers use an awful lot. So nice bold broad mark, which I guess if you were writing quite sort of edgy calligraphy would be great. But we might want quite a fine mark, so turning it upside down you can get a very fine mark. And then what I've discovered is, depending on the angle you use, you can get very intermediate marks, and it holds more ink than that matchstick pen. I'm just running out now. So if I load it up again, I can, that's a fine mark, and then as I start to change the angle, I can get it broader and broader and broader and broader. So angle and pressure affects the mark you achieve. So that's quite an interesting range, and that's one of the major attractions to me as an artist, is that I can have one implement and get a real broad range of marks, whereas that glass dip pen, you had one mark and that's what it did. So kind of holding it on its side seems to me to be the most interesting way of using it, and the most versatile. I guess if you were writing as such, you would hold it like a normal pen. Fine. But actually I'm not interested in writing, I'm interested in drawing. So I'm going to hold it more to the side so that I can vary the width of mark and get some interesting marks there. This is smooth cartridge paper, quite heavy cartridge paper. I wonder what it'll be like if I put it on watercolour paper. So that's just a piece of not surface watercolour paper. So let's have a look and see what it's like on here. I'm expecting the mark to obviously be a lot more broken because we've got the texture in the paper. But again, by altering the angle, I can go from super bold, and it's not half as scratchy as you might anticipate. And then when I'm upside down, very fine little mark. So there's a lot of versatility, and actually it goes on for a surprising long way, given that was from one dip. What happens is the ink is held between those two bits of metal and then feeds the end of the nib. So that's how it works. So I'm looking forward to actually doing a proper drawing with this rather than just scribbling on pieces of paper.